All right, guys, welcome for my first ever podcast. Today, I have with me one of my friends, Jed. Jed, do you want to talk about who you are?
Yeah, I'm Jed Rooney. I'm from Denver, Colorado. And actually, I took a big jump going to the college that me and Hitarth go to, which is Texas Tech University, as an out of state student. But I'm majoring in electrical engineering at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing that. We'll just have to see how I like it going forward. And I'm like, to sum up who I am as a person, I'm a very adventurous person. I like to try new things, and I really like learning. I'm a very curious person.
That's dope. Um, Before we get into the nitty gritty of all this stuff, what did your childhood look like? How did that make you into the person that you are right now?
Yeah, I grew up in Denver. I grew up in a very stable household. My parents were married. However, really, both my parents grew up in pretty unstable households, and their background with that led them to give me a very solid and caring childhood because they didn't want to repeat the mistakes of their parents, and they really pushed me to do whatever I wanted. They didn't push me in any specific direction. They didn't tell me that I had to play sports or do this or do that. So I really had an opportunity to grow without pressure. I didn't have parental pressure.
Yeah, that's good. That's how my parents raised me, actually. But my parents grew up in a stable household, so it wasn't like anything that they were actively trying to do. It was just how they were raised, and that's how they raised us. Especially coming from a Indian household, like a lot of times like families stay together even if it's not perfect, it's not like the best day every day, you know what I mean? Which is really good to have like a stable family. Um so let me ask you, looking back over your life, what are you, 20, 19?
I'm almost 20, yeah, so 19 right now.
Okay. So you've lived a good amount of your life, right? You would say, I mean,
I would say that at this point, I have a pretty good grasp on who I am. Obviously, not fully developed, but I have lived a lot of life.
of course, yeah. So looking back in your life, like let's say middle school, elementary, high school, right? What is like one thing you regret the most? That if you wish you could go back, you wouldn't do that thing because you think it has messed you up a lot. Now that you're a little bit older, you can see how it really impacted you in a negative way.
Yeah, so I think that really for me, what impacted me profoundly in a negative way was just not believing in myself and not believing that I deserved to be where I was and underestimating myself. I think that's a very profound um, realization that I've had over the years is that uh, you are who you think you can become. And, in school, I didn't apply myself as much as maybe I would have if I had thought about maybe if there was a program that I wanted to get into, but I felt that I wasn't smart enough to do it, or maybe a extracurricular I wanted to try out for, and I just didn't believe in myself. And I think that that's something that I've been working on changing for a while now.
That's good. That's something similar to what I did. But before I talk about me, why do you think that you sort of had that sort of mindset that you weren't capable or that you wouldn't achieve something that you put your mind to? Like, what do you think made you think that way?
I really think it came from in my childhood, this kind of a vulnerable moment, but I really think it came from I was a smaller kid, and I wasn't really that good at sports because maybe I wouldn't get picked for the teams I wanted to get on, maybe the basketball team or another team. My parents didn't really didn't really tell like have a lot of I didn't have that much validation growing up, especially from my classmates they always looked at me like I was kind of different, and that kind of led to a lot of self-confidence issues later on.
Yeah, it's very similar to what happened with me. So like I'm actually an immigrant from India, so I moved here when I was 5, right? And if I remember what it was like in elementary, like I didn't feel like I ever fit in with anybody there, even though I tried to. It was kind of like I was always like an outsider because I was an outsider. Like my skin was different, my culture was different. I was the only Indian kid in my whole school, so you can immediately see that this guy's different than us. So that really just stuck with me. Like I'm an outsider. I don't belong here. They're never gonna accept me. I'm never going to fit in with them. You know what I mean? And that sort of limited my ability to communicate, to have a big circle, to um, go out and venture and meet new people and grow my social circle to help me in the future become a better person. And so, like in middle school, high school, I would do stuff because like your classes would make you do them, right? You need like one athletic credit or you know what I mean, something fine arts related. So I would do stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily actively go out of my way to do things just because it was more comfortable for me not to. Does that make sense? Kind of like what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I think that you probably had a lot of external factors like that were out of your control, and I absolutely relate to that because while I wasn't an immigrant myself, I just never really felt like I fit in that well in a lot of the schools that I went to. I went to a big high school that it was a big rich high school, and my parents, they were all about like me working towards buying my own things, and I think that taught me about a lot of valuable lessons. But I never had the nicest car, I never had the most expensive clothes, and I really it kind of affected the social comparison aspect, just really weighed on me, and that honestly made my high school experience not very fun, not very tolerable.
That's very similar to my situation. Like I didn't have a phone until I got into ninth grade. Can you imagine not having a phone in middle school? Like how are you going to communicate, especially like during COVID time? How am I going to talk to my friends? And then over time, they just like build up to you becoming a person that can't socially connect with people. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say? So high school, when high school time came, it was really hard for me to make a lot of friends and create a big circle for myself. Um,
Yeah, sorry.
no, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I think that first year of high school that it got taken from both me and Hitarth during the pandemic. It's such a critical time in terms of making friends. It's honestly not talked about enough, and especially because I grew up in the same city all my life. Um, it's just that you can't really after that like things were kind of set, and since I didn't have the self-confidence to build a solid group around me from the beginning, I lacked the confidence that others had, and they obtained, and it really set me back for a long time.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So now let me ask you, right? Now that you're a bit older, you've changed, you have a different mindset. Like you've built yourself, you have a really good physique, and you were saying you were smaller, right? So you worked on yourself as a person, right?
Yes, definitely, definitely.
So let me ask you now, if you could go back and talk to your 14, 15-year-old self, middle school, going into high school, what are 5 things you would tell yourself? And can we go like deep into each one of them? So what's like the first thing you would tell yourself?
Yeah, so the first thing that I would tell myself, and it sounds kind of superficial, but I think that it's super critical, which is that you need to actually try to work on developing yourself physically, because it will lead to a lot more confidence and self esteem, which will then be translated into confidence in other things. And you will actually be able to apply that to your life in other ways. And that is something that I kind of realized when I started playing sports. But I used to be a really skinny kid. I used to be a small kid. I was not really very well developed, and I also didn't I didn't have that athletic talent that some other kids had, so I wasn't getting picked for the team that I wanted to, and that doesn't seem important at the time, but it actually, when you don't get picked for one thing, then you lack the experience that others that got picked for that thing have, and then that doesn't that lack of experience translates over to the next thing.
Yeah, so like from like a coach's perspective, right? If you had to pick between two people, one person who's played the sport and they were playing on the varsity team, and the other person who hasn't played, obviously who you're gonna pick, right? The person who's played on the varsity team. I mean, it just makes sense from their perspective too. So it definitely, I agree with you. Working on yourself physically is such an important thing to do because it gives you the confidence to like see yourself like, yeah, you can do something. You know, like getting a good physique isn't an easy thing to do. That takes months and if not years of eating clean, of working out consistently, of doing the right things um, every single day, and tracking what you're doing. And that helps give you the confidence needed to go out, put yourself out there because you know that you can achieve things if you put your mind to it, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that definitely is what happened to me when I started lifting weights a lot. I started running every day. I just felt a lot better about myself. It seems small, but it's actually produces massive changes in your quality of life.
So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. What exactly did it change? Like, how did people act differently? How did things come to you? I would think like naturally. I feel like fate also works to help you if you or help yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, when I was kind of small, skinny, I got picked on by everyone. I mean, people just looked at me. They were like, "Wow, that kid just he's just not capable." I mean, they would underestimate me for athletic things, but this goes way deeper than that. I mean, they think that maybe you're less intelligent, less capable, and that translates into your self-esteem when you're in class, when you're doing other things that require you to have confidence, that have that natural ability to speak to people in a manner that would convey that you're capable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they see you differently. They see you as somebody not to just push over, to respect, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I'm not one of those people that is all about the gym. I just think that you need to acquire some degree of physicality to be able to even have any respect. I mean, look at if you look at anyone that is successful in one way or the other, they have um, they have obtained like some degree of respect in one way or the other. And when you're younger, you don't have a lot of ways to obtain respect or confidence, which would propel you to go forward in life, other than maybe building yourself up physically. Obviously, that will change when you get older, but for now, or when you're a youth, that is the situation that I found myself in, that many other people will find themselves in.
Very true. Very true. So what's the second thing you would tell yourself? So first was get in good physical shape. What's the second thing you would say?
Yeah, I would say that the second thing that you should work on is you should work on taking more risks. I think that I personally didn't take enough risks in high school. I didn't take those harder classes. I took some, but I should have taken more. I should have been more confident about what I did in my spare time. I should have in Colorado there are a lot of mountains and other stuff like that that you can climb, and honestly it's a really good time, but I've only recently discovered my passion for climbing mountains just because it is not that safe of a thing to do, but it's also necessary.
Mm-hmm.
um, Taking risks is another way that you can develop your confidence, and developing your confidence is critical to your success in life because of the aforementioned reasons: your friends, your social circle, and other tests that you will face in life, not just academically.
Yeah, so just take risks all throughout, like all aspects of your life, just because the what you're going to lose is going to be so small, especially at that age, right? You don't have much to lose, so might as well take that risk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're young, you have so much time to experiment and figure things out. And that honestly translates into a massive gain in life experience and massive gain in terms of your ability to succeed, not just academically, but in business and other aspects of your life.
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah. What's the third thing you would tell yourself? Okay, so first was getting your physical shape good. Second thing was taking a lot of risk so you can experiment and see exactly what works, what doesn't work. And you're gonna need that especially as you get older because other people have taken those risks, and if you don't take them, you're gonna be behind in life in the sense that you won't know exactly how real life works exactly because I mean it's your first time living life, right? So what's the third thing you would say to yourself?
I would say to find something that you are passionate about and apply yourself to that thing as much as possible. Because in terms of your, I'm going to use an economic term, in terms of your marginal in terms of your improvement, in terms of, sorry, let's cut that. What the fuck?
It's like I'll cut it. You can just keep talking.
Okay. In terms of your return on investment, you're going to see that you want more of a breadth or less of a breadth of things that you did, and you want to go in depth with a couple things more. You don't want to be the kid that does literally everything. And I know that I just said that I regretted not taking more risks, but taking risks, you will find something that you become passionate about. And you really want to just focus on a couple things outside of school that you really care about. And in that, you'll gain leadership skills. You will figure out how to go about completing a project, how to go about doing this or that needs to get done to achieve something. You'll also become a better problem solver, but you have to really apply yourself for a little while, even more than a little while, to even get to that point where you face these challenges that could make you a more well-developed and more well-rounded person in general.
Yeah, that's very true. So last year actually, so 2 semesters ago, I took my first honors college class. It was like a leadership class, right? And the book I read was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? And in that book, what he talks about is that um, there's two types of people, right? One person, they experiment a lot of things, and so they know a little bit about a lot of things, and the other person goes in depth about a few things, right? But they're such an expert at that they can use that skill to make money, right? And that's also very similar to how life works, in the sense that if you're young and you have time, experiment a ton of things so you figure out what you're naturally good at, right? Cristiano Ronaldo also said this, and someone asked him like, "What would you do? Would you rather be talented or be hardworking?" And he said, "Hard work without talent is nothing, but talent is also important. So find something you're talented in, and that's just gonna take a lot of time for you to go out and experiment and try 10 different things instead of one, and then see what are you naturally good at, and then pursue that to a point you become really good, to a point that other people are gonna see that you're good at that and give you opportunity through that. You know what I mean?"
Yeah, and I think again it comes back to the entire conversation about confidence, because when you're renowned, when you're recognized in one thing, in one aspect, something that you're really good at, that becomes a part of your identity, and that bolsters your self-confidence. Other people will trust you with more responsibility, and that will just lead you to gain more life experience in a positive way.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so what is the fourth thing you would tell yourself?
Yeah, so the fourth thing, so this is also pretty superficial, but at the same time, I'm on this podcast, and I want to be as authentic as possible to the listeners, which is that, and this is something that I learned more recently as well, which is that girls do not care. I don't know if you're a girl watching this or a guy watching this,
Well,
but
right
for
now
the
it's just gonna be
guys,
me watching this. Nobody's gonna watch like the first 50 of these. But go ahead. Yeah, what were you saying?
well, I don't know if for the male viewers out there, and I've been told this by several of my female friends as well, which is that girls don't care how you look. Really, they you have to achieve a certain amount of attractiveness. Obviously, keep your hygiene good, keep yourself in good physical condition. Maybe get a good looking haircut. But at the end of the day, women really do not care about that. What they value more is who you are as a person. And that's something that is really getting taken advantage of today in today's media, which is that there are all these influencers that are out here on Instagram and wherever that have built entire careers off of improving men's aesthetic. And the men that subscribe to this do this, and I don't blame them because I was the same way, because they think that that might lead them to true love. They think that that might lead them closer to maybe getting in a relationship or getting more attention from girls. But the truth is that it's going to take a lot of effort and time to find women that appreciate you, because your personalities have to get along with theirs, and they care about your authentic self far more than they care about your looks.
I would kind of push back on that just a little bit. I feel like good looks is like the barrier to entry, but then to keep that person, right? Like you can get in like short-term relationships because of your looks, but if you want to keep that person like long term, you're gonna have to match. You have to be compatible on a personal level, on an emotional level, on the things you guys find funny, the things that you're hoping to have in the future, your goals for life. You know, that's in the future. Like that's after you put your foot in the door, which is good looks. So if you're a young guy watching this, right, or anybody, and you have two options: work on your personality, work on your looks. Work on your looks for sure. I think that's going to give you the most return on your investment compared to working on your personality, because I think working on your personality, it's a little bit faster to do and it's easier to do compared to working on your looks. That's gonna take you like a year, 2 years to start seeing like genuine, real improvements to a point people are gonna notice. You know, so work on your looks and then also work on your personality in parallel. You don't have to pick one and do that. You can work on both. So what would you say about that?
I would completely agree, and I would also like to say that it is difficult to achieve an aesthetic that it takes a lot of time and effort to achieve an aesthetic that women will appreciate. At the same time, I do think there is something to be said about personality in terms of your compatibility. However, in the short term, yeah, the barrier to entry is good looks. It's kind of like graduating from college is kind of the barrier to entry to getting a job, and there you will actually gain the real experience you need to maybe, if you want, start your own company in that sector or that industry, or do something else in that field.
Yeah, I like the example you use a lot, like going to college and then going to the workforce instead of just going to the workforce right out of high school. Like you can do both. They're both doable. It's just that going through college is much, much easier, right? And it's the same thing with like getting girls. If you're a girl watching this, getting guys, right? Working on your looks is gonna allow you to get some person you find attractive much easier than going the other way, which is work on your personality, which can also work, but not as effective as working on your looks, right?
Absolutely. And I would like to build on that a bit more before going to my last uh, point of regret. And I would like to say that it is definitely not a level playing field. some people were born with perfect genetics, with an insane physique, without really having to work that hard on it, or a very good facial features or something like that. And it's sad to say, but in that sense, life is not fair. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you should become discouraged and give up on yourself and give up hope that you can better yourself aesthetically, because it's definitely possible for anyone to achieve what they want in terms of their aesthetic. It just takes more work, and it's also about becoming more comfortable with what you look like, with what your body type is, and adapting your aesthetic to that.
Yeah, that's very very true. Yeah, um, and like what you were saying about fairness in life, nothing in life is fair. Like, who were you born to? Were you born to rich parents, poor parents? Where were you born? Were you born in some place that doesn't have good medical, or some place that does have good medical system? Where were you born? Somewhere that has good education, bad education. You know, nothing about life is fair. And so you have two choices in life, right? Is to first either a wallow in self pity and say, "Oh, I got a bad hand of cards," right? Or bad hand in life or whatever. And the other perspective say, yeah, I did get a bad hand, but how can I play my cards perfectly, right? And so in one, right, if you just sit there, you're for sure gonna lose. If you take the other road, you might lose, you might win. And if I was a betting man, I might as well play the might lose, might win instead of just for sure losing, right? So that seems like a no-brainer to me. All right, moving on to the fifth thing. What would you tell yourself if you would meet your younger self? The last thing.
Absolutely. So this sounds kind of cliche, but I think that you should devote as much time as possible towards becoming a more educated person. In today's society, uh, that is actually becoming more and more of a rarity because there are so many distractions. But if you become a well educated person, a well spoken person, people will respect you far more. They will want to hear what you have to say. They will respect the ideas that you bring to the table. And that is a currency more valuable than gold in today's society, is just that ability to have enough knowledge to understand what is going on, to draw conclusions from your knowledge. And I would like to provide a personal example, which is that I was very fortunate in several regards in terms of my education. The first example is that my mom pressured me pretty heavily into taking the spelling bee very seriously when I was in middle school and elementary school. And I thought that that was a terrible idea. I thought, like, why would I want to do that? Like, it makes me seem like such a nerd. Like, these kids are weird. Like, what am I doing? I'd study. My mom would have me studying words for 2 hours a night. How to spell them, their definitions, their origin, how different words are pronounced phonetically. But at the same time, now that I'm older, I can completely appreciate where that has taken me in life, because whenever it comes to me needing to write a paper, or me needing to just spell a word on when I'm taking my notes or something like that, I absolutely understand what is going on. I've just looked at so many words that, to me, it comes naturally to be able to spell them, and it also broadened my vocabulary to an extent that uh, now I feel that I've become a far more articulate person as a result, and that is also an extremely valuable skill. That is something that will lead any work that you do in terms of your research or other aspects of your life to gain far more acclaim, because you simply use more eloquent words. You are simply able to convey your ideas in a more precise and concise way.
Yeah, that's very true. Like the manner by which you speak has such a heavy impact on how people perceive you. Like if you speak articulately with confidence and um, efficiently, fluently, they're gonna assume that you're more capable in a lot of other things, right? That goes beyond just speaking. Like if you're applying to a job, like your interview, they're checking to see how is this person going to like combine, not even combine, but how is he going to join our team? How is he going to relate with all the members on the team? And what are his soft skills? Can he speak well? Can he be a good salesman? How can he? Does he have emotional control, emotional regulation? Is he able to express his emotions and thoughts in a way that are easy for other people to understand, or is he all over the place, right? And these things matter a lot in jobs, in your relationships, in any opportunity that you want to get, even in how you feel as a person. All these things matter a ton. Um, because if you can't speak properly, you're going to be a little bit more insecure when you go talk to people. So I think speaking really well is super important. And education, like you were saying, is also really important. Like, I wish I would have read more books. Like back in elementary, I was friends with a guy who used to read a ton of books, right? And he came from a really like high end, like prestigious family, but he would read all the time, and that set him ahead from any of us by a ton because he could communicate in a way that was really, really um, polite and also mm, professional. I think a lot of times people are unable to speak professionally in places they need to speak professionally because they haven't for so long. And yeah, I wish I would have read more. I wish I would have learned how to learn efficiently. You would save so much more time if you can properly learn how you learn. You know, like everybody's a little bit differently. Some people have ADHD, some people don't. Some people learn by reading, some people learn by doing it. So just figuring that out for yourself and going to watch YouTube videos and seeing exactly what you can use to help you learn something that might take someone else 2 hours to learn in 1 hour. And if you can, that's an extra hour you can save and then use towards something else, something that you're passionate about, and grow in there as well. Right? What would you say?
Yeah, so that completely is what I experienced and am still experiencing today with all of the practice that I had with these spelling words is that you really, A, learn how to study in a more efficient way, and B, you also learn how to convey yourself in a more efficient way, in a way that is more comprehensible, in a way that people will appreciate. And that also comes with talking and socializing with people, but really spending time reading books and learning words and expanding your knowledge in general, and you will see these uh, differences in the manner with which people will perceive you, and it will especially translate professionally. And I believe I was going to provide a second example in terms of how I was raised in that sense, because my family values education over pretty much anything. They are extremely huge into education. I mean, my mom got a degree from Berkeley and then Northwestern, and my dad went to Rochester, then the University of Pennsylvania for his master's degree. And so what they did was they put me in this language school. It was called Denver Language School. It was a new charter school at the time. They were actually part of the founding members of it. But what it did was it had two tracks, it had Mandarin or Spanish. And for the next 9 years of your life, starting from kindergarten going up to 8th grade, you would be learning in pretty much any subject that you would take. You'd be learning in either Mandarin or Spanish. And I chose the Spanish track.
Oh man, Shud chose Mandarin. That's the number one. most spoken language.
I do agree. I do agree. I was too young at the time to
But
really.
Spanish sounds more like romantic, so I guess that worked out too. I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely should have looked into that a bit more. To be fair, I was 6 years old at the time, but at the same time, like I'm still a fluent speaker. I can still speak in Spanish. I can still hold conversations, and that's another thing that is kind of. It's actually becoming more widespread with Duolingo and other language learning apps, but it's still kind of underrated in today's society, which is the ability to speak multiple languages, which comes back to focusing on becoming as educated as possible because it really just expands the amount of people that you can meet.
Mm-hmm.
And when you expand the amount of people you can eat that you can meet, you can expand your breadth of experience.
That's very true. Yeah, and like another thing about like language. So I am Indian, right? And I know like two different languages, like a local language from India, Gujarati, and then like a national language, Hindi, and then also obviously English because that's what we're talking in. And it's super like strange to me how you can convey emotions in a different way through different languages. Like if I wanted to convey something to you in English, I won't be able to do it as effectively as I would in either Hindi or English, you know. So knowing multiple languages is also a great way to communicate in a more efficient manner that you wouldn't be able to if you only knew one language. Also, yeah, as you said, like meeting a lot of new people who might not know English, yeah, you're just gonna become a more well-rounded person, um, a more well-traveled person, better experiences. You'll see the world for what it actually is instead of just like through one lens, if that makes sense. All right, moving on. Now that you're a bit older, right, and you have perspective that your younger self lacked, would you say it right? How has your mindset about life changed, and like how has your mindset about what you want from like about life and what you want from life changed now that you're older and see things in a different way that your younger self wouldn't be able to see because he doesn't have the same perspective?
Absolutely, yeah. So, well, back in the day, I mean, I think I was the same as a lot of kids. They wanted this or that. They wanted, the best toys. Or when I got a bit older and we started messing around with like scooters, you wanted the cool scooter. Get a bit older, you want a cool car, something like that. But now I'm more focused on changing the world in a positive way. I'm more focused on being at the forefront of what I'm studying right now is electrical engineering, but being at the forefront of technology, being at the forefront of innovation, leaving a lasting mark on the world in my name.
And how so what were you how exactly are you going to do that? Like you said, you want to leave a good impact on the world. So, what exactly are the steps are you going to take to make that into a reality? Because you still have a long chunk of your life left. Like most people are gonna live to what, like 80 at least now with how good medical is now. That's 60 more years for you, right? Like, how are you going to do that? What's like a good like roadmap you see yourself having to achieve that goal of providing something good to humanity?
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, it comes back to the conversation about education. Right now, I'm focused on becoming as educated as possible, but the end goal of me becoming educated in college is not really to get a job. I will get a job to gain experience, but that's just a furthering of my education because at the end of the day, people start businesses in a lot of different sectors, right? And my objective is to start a company in high tech, innovating in the sector of high tech and helping to improve people's quality of life and advance technology through high technology. What is high technology? High technology would be cutting edge, machine learning, or maybe it's transistor technology, maybe it's new ways to solve problems with technology. But the reason why I'm getting an education now and really the how behind college and also the why is that I want to gain in enough education and experience to advance myself to a position where I can build a company like that, because you are really only as good as how much education you have. You can, well, I'll use an example. You could maybe start a company in house cleaning, right? Because that's your background, because maybe you didn't go to school, or maybe you're an immigrant. And I have completely no judgment towards either of those paths. I think that they're completely valid. However, they just simply don't suit my objective right now in life. But the other person might start a company designing um new ways to designing like new wings or new other parts of a aircraft that could lead to us being able to actually get to space. And what does that require? That requires a lot more educational background. That requires a profound amount of work to even get to the point where you would know where to start. Because that, at the end of the day, you need to attain a certain level of knowledge to even be able to get in the door when you're in high tech, in that innovational sector. And that's just one way that you can change the world. There are many other ways that are very positive that you could change the world. I mean, I would also like to talk about politics, right? And I would like to bring up another example other than the current president that we have today, which I have no political opinion on. Most of the other presidents that we've had have gotten law degrees from the top universities in the United States. And what has that done for them? It has allowed them to achieve an amount of knowledge that they would need to build a career in law, and then finally, with that career, attain the knowledge that they would need to lead the country in a positive way.
Yeah, and I think a thing to like remember about education, you don't have to necessarily go to prestigious institutions, colleges. I mean, if you do, that's great. But for the people that can't, I think just having a mindset of finding things you can learn wherever you are is very important. Being a forever student is something that's very important to have or to be, and creating a good impact at any scale, right? Like for you, you want to create a impact on a big scale, finding ways to improve lives of humanity as a whole. But for other people who might be listening, it could be something small as improving the lives of people in your neighborhood, in your village, in your state. You know what I mean? In your country. And so, finding your skill set and what you're good at, and the things you know, and how you can use that to create a positive impact for the maximum amount of people that you can, is something that I think is definitely a thing that all humans should strive for, because it's going to create a better future for ourselves, in a sense, like a future version of ourselves, but also our kids and what humanity will be as a whole. All right. So let me ask you now, what mistakes do you believe that people in your age group, like college students, end of high school, college students, early, 21, 22, 23, early into their job, what do you think is what mistakes do you think they're making, and that is stunting their ability to achieve that the goals that they want to in the future?
Absolutely. So I have given this question some thought before. So I believe there's two different poles, two different axioms of this question, depending on where you approach it, which is that you can either be a student which focuses on academics all the time, which is it's cool. I mean, if you really want to become an extremely dedicated student, you're extremely passionate about what you are doing, that is completely valid. However, what is not valid, what is a common side effect of that, is that these people aren't getting out and improving themselves in other ways. Namely, they're not getting out and meeting new people. And getting out and meeting new people in college is critical. I mean, those are going to be some of the connections that last you for the rest of your life, that these people might be at your wedding. I mean, you might retain some friends from high school, but in college, you meet a lot of the people that you will be with for the rest of your life. And it's also one of the easiest times in life to meet people and to gain experience socially and to learn how to form connections with people. And I think that that's a huge mistake that a lot of people are making, especially at these institutions that absolutely prioritize education over anything else, is that they are not going out and they're not meeting enough people. And that's honestly also shown in some of the higher mental illness rates in some of these institutions, which, again, I have no hate on. I have a lot of people that are going to colleges that are extremely prestigious, these liberal arts colleges, and they could not be more happy. But one of the keys to happiness in life is social connection. And so you should try to meet as many people that you can in college. And the other axiom is people that are in college who don't really know what they want to do, and they're kind of just there because maybe their parents told them to be there, or because they figured that they didn't really know what was the next right choice in life, and it seemed like the obvious choice. And that comes back to kind of taking risks, which is that you really need to try to figure out what you want to do in life, and you need to figure out your why behind what you're doing in college, not just because it's a degree, because it's a job. That's cool. And I mean, for maybe some first generation students that are kind of impoverished, or their families had a history of being impoverished, and they want to be the kid that brings their family out of poverty, and they're attending college to do that, that's also valid, but that is a why. So you always have to have a why as to why you're attending college or what you're doing there.
Yeah, I think that's really, really good what you said. I think you gave two mistakes people are making, and I'll talk about the first one first, because brought that up first. And you said people are focusing too much on education. I think that's so true. I think, like, for me, I came from a school here, like I'm from Lubbock, and I went to a school here, and our graduation class was like 700, and I was the salutatorian, right? I graduated second. I gave a speech, but that didn't necessarily get me anywhere far in life. Having good grades, having basically perfect grades, didn't necessarily get me anywhere. And a lot of people around me, like from my life, who didn't put that much emphasis on their grades, rather they went out to do other things, and that could be academic. It doesn't necessarily have to be like grades. It could be like doing more academic competitions. It could be being part of the robotics club. It could be doing something sports related, but just having like a well-rounded personality. Those people, like I know them personally, are going to very, very prestigious schools. I have a friend who's actually going to the number one school um, in computer science in our nation, right? And like one thing about him is like I have better grades than him, but he was a better, well-rounded person than I was, in the sense that he did more things outside of just grades, and that got him over there. And not doing that got me where I am, right? And it's something that if you're younger watching this, especially like early in high school, maybe late middle school, like definitely think about that, right? Like don't fully focus your energy on grades. Like get that A, right? Definitely get an A, but don't do what I did, was get like an A plus, right? Don't try to go for like the 97, 98, 99. Just get like a 91 or something like that and call it a day. And then use the extra time that you save to go out and do other things that's going to help you become a well-rounded person, that's going to get you to meet new people, that's going to give you more experiences to talk about on your college essays and stuff. And that's going to be definitely something that's going to positively impact you a ton in your life, especially going into college and what colleges you get accepted into. And another thing we're saying is like people who focus just on education, these higher institutions, they have really high depression rate, and that's true. They are like very, very depressed. And I think one big thing about humans is our social connection, how we connect with people, how we feel around people, how that emotionally impacts us. I think that's like the end goal for everybody, right? To be happy, to feel wanted, to feel like are they have an impact on the world, that they're needed, right? And if you just focus on education, that's not necessarily going to give you that. It's actually probably not going to give you that. Not even necessarily. It's probably not going to. And so that's definitely something you got to think about. That focus on education, but to a limit, right? Have a limit for everything. Even drinking water is good for you, but if you drink too much water, you're gonna get waterboarded, right? So that's something to definitely think about. And what was the second thing you said?
Yeah, so it was really about the why in terms of going to college because you can achieve so much without going to college nowadays.
Yeah, so that's very true. You can achieve a lot of things. And for a lot of people who are first generation, as you mentioned, I think going to college is super important to get your family out of that state of um, seeing money as something that they don't have any power over, to getting into like a financial position where they're free from all these constraints that finances put on you, right? For some of those people, yeah, going to college for something that they don't necessarily want to do, but it's gonna get their themselves and their family out of that hole is definitely something that they should do. But for other people who might not be in that position, who come from a family that is not in that state, I think I think going to college is good in the sense it gives you a lot of stuff that not going to college doesn't. But keep in mind what you're going for. I think take a lot of time to think about what you want to do. Like I'm studying computer science, but I'm also doing this podcast. This is my first podcast. Like why? I mean, it's something cool to try out, see what happens with it. And if computer science doesn't work out in the future, that's fine. If I focus enough time on this, then this could be something that helps pay the bills for me. It could be something that I'm known for. It could be something that helps basically feed my entire family, you know? So just going to college, but using the resources that college gives you, like this podcast studio we're recording at right now, right? I wouldn't have access to that. Like this equipment would cost me like $500,000, and just going to college gives me that. Now, obviously, I'm paying a lot more for tuition and stuff, but there's other things that college provides. So definitely take some time to think about if you want to go to college or not. And like, if you're younger listening to this, apply for scholarships. And that's apply for scholarships. Talk to people, do networking to see like any more local scholarships that you can get. Because like I got a good amount of scholarships locally. It wasn't anything on website related, you know, it was like through my school and stuff. So definitely think about like if you want to go to college and you have like a good idea, even like a rough idea, I say go for it and then apply to a lot of scholarships so you don't necessarily have to pay a lot of the money that other people who are not being that who don't have that foresight are going to have to pay. What would you say?
Absolutely. I would say that you should definitely try to go to college as cheaply as possible. And that was a big motivator for me going to Texas Tech University was that it's actually cheaper than my in-state school, CU Boulder. And it just makes a lot more sense. And I can do what I need to do here, even though this college might not have an insane name like some of these other schools in the country do. I can do it for cheap and I can be ahead in life afterwards. And I won't graduate with debt and I will actually be able to further my purpose without being bogged down with maybe those loans that college in the Ivy League might have you set up with. At the same time, I want to continue to discuss the entire situation with your why of college, which is that you also need to make sure that you were made for college in the first place. You need to make sure that it's something that you want to do. I know someone personally who went to a top institution and he dropped out and he's now in trade school because that's what he wanted to do more in life. But there are so many other possibilities other than that. It depends. Maybe you want to join the military, do something there, or maybe you want to just start a company out of high school. Maybe you were already on a path in high school that was leading you to greatness, and I mean greatness that would maybe benefit you for the rest of your life, and maybe going to college is actually going to slow down that path. Maybe it's not actually the best path. I would urge any younger viewers watching this to consider that college is not free. Even with scholarships, it still costs money, and there still should be a reason why you're here.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. And if college is going to be like a hindrance, I think that's something you should think about. Because like right now, like I'm taking a lot of classes that I don't necessarily need, right? in my profession, but they're helping me become like a better person. But at the same time, it's not something I'm going to use. Like, are you taking any classes that are basically a waste of your time and your money?
Absolutely. I'm taking a general education class, global art and visualization, just like basically solely because the college requires it as a credit,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we should definitely be careful about, and that's something that you should be careful about in the track that you're going down is wasting your time with classes like that.
Yeah, but if you can find like a good college, not even like a great college, but like a decent college to go to for cheap, and you don't have like a great idea of where you want to go, that thing going to college isn't like a bad idea. I think there's a lot you can get from it, and there's a lot you can learn from it. A lot of new people you can meet if you're somebody who's a little extroverted, or if you're introverted, become extroverted. Just put yourself out there, see what happens. Experiment, right? As you were saying, experiment, take risk. If you're not gonna take risks when you were younger, right now is the best time to take risks. Like there's a good, I think, proverb or something like that, and it says there's two great times to plant a tree. The first time was 100 years ago. The second best time is now. If you couldn't do it then, at least start right now. So, and college is a great way to meet people who are around your age. Maybe find somebody who would want to start a business with you if you're someone who is entrepreneurial, or talk to professors, talk to people who might be doing different things, and see exactly is what they're doing something you're interested in, right? It's just a great place to find people who are interested in different things and see what you might be interested in. So college has some ups and downs, so definitely think about that. I'm somebody who leans towards going to college personally, but it's like you have to be a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more ambitious. Like put your foot on the accelerator. Just go out and see things. But if you're like a passive person, then college might be something that you're wasting. You actually might be shooting yourself in the foot, racking on those debts and stuff. So yeah, definitely something to think about. All right, one more thing. What is the biggest fear you have for the future? And what I mean is that, like, if you could create a future version of yourself, what would you not want him to have?
Yeah, so I would absolutely not want myself to have a career that is not going anywhere, that's not fruitful, where I am capped in terms of my ability to grow my education, in terms of my ability to really change the world, where I am sort of merely there for one specific purpose that is not going to change and that there's no possibility for change. And in engineering, that actually can happen. It's not uncommon, so it's something that I have to be careful about. But it's all about sort of positioning yourself in a field where there's always growth, where there's always new ideas, where there's always new things that are coming to the table, and putting yourself in a position to be at the forefront of taking advantage of those ideas. And at a certain point, you have to ask yourself if the job you're working for is really going to put you in that position. And I am perfectly happy in the future to switch jobs maybe a half dozen times even until I find the role that I'm looking for in that respect.
Yeah, so never get like, are you saying like never get like complacent or feel like you're trapped in any situation? Always be somebody who has like something that they're going towards. They're running towards something instead of just sitting there. You know what I mean? Like on the racetrack, you're running towards the finish line instead of just being like, all right, I give up. I sit here now. You know what I mean? And that's very important. It gives you like a drive to do something, especially when you get older and everybody around you is sort of just like settling in. And it's good to settle in. There's a lot of things that settling in provides you, but settling in with some some idea about what you want your future to be, something you're going towards, I think is very important. Because if not, if you just sit there, then you're going to go from 30 to 40 and you're not going to have grown. You're not going to have evolved into the person you need to evolve into to be happy in your 40s. You know what I mean? So that's very important, to not be stagnant. Always have something you're wanting to achieve, have some idea of where you're wanting to go, right? And that could be in everything. That could be in your job or your relationship, right? But have some idea of where you are and where you want to be. All right, one last thing, right? This is something I want to make into like a ritual in all the podcasts I do. And what I was thinking is like, if if you were forgotten about, right? Like if you die and you're forgotten about, what is one thing that you would tell the next generation, or even people who are listening right now, like something that's actionable that they can do. And that could be like a mindset switch, or it could be anything, but it's something actionable. You know what I mean? Something that they can do, not something that they just hear and it sounds good, like, oh, that was so profound. Like one good example would be if you want to lose weight, 10,000 steps a day, boom, actionable. It's like an action you can take to get there. You know what I mean? So what's like something you would tell?
Yes, absolutely. So if you don't like what's going on around you politically, or you don't agree with it, or in terms of what's being taken at a local or statewide or national level, you need to remember that you, as a citizen, I don't know where you are, but there is no place on this planet almost where you cannot take some small action towards changing, and your small action will lead to eventually a much larger ripple of growth. Like, one actionable thing you could do is maybe you could go and you could spread the word at your local square or somewhere else, or you could give a speech, or you could get involved with political lobbying, or you could get involved in a wide variety of other things within the constraints of your government's allowance. And even if you really don't believe in that the change that you're seeing is being uh, brought into consideration, there's no harm and nothing bad has come of people going extrajudiciously, or sort of taking bold moves towards enabling political change. That is something that has stood the test of time since the country that I'm in, the United States, has been founded.
I think that's perfect way to end it off. Jed, thank you for coming on. It was a great first podcast. I appreciate you a lot. And yeah, man, it was great. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity, Hitarth.
And that's a wrap.